recording's not. Okay, here we go. Okay, hi everyone. My name is David Bender. I'm the Director of Grants and Operations here at Pinellas Community Foundation. If you're here, you must be interested in our general operating grants. And we are currently in the letter of intent period for this process. This webinar today is going to be going over the details of the process. I'll go through question by question on the two types of letters of intent that we have, both direct community services and arts and culture. And then I'll be doing a bit of Q&A at the end. So as I said, I'm David Bender. My phone number and email address are on the screen. I'm available during the letter of intent period to answer any questions, do any calls. I'm available to give general feedback on any material you've prepared. If you've applied for us before, you may be used to me going very deep on your content. During the letter of intent period, I'm not able to as much because I do have a hand in reviewing them, but I can give general, you're on track, you're off track kind of comments for your material. So as I mentioned, today we'll be going over the process. I'll be going over timeline, eligibility, the difference between our two types, the community services and arts and culture. I'll go over the letter of intent and then Q&A. So what are these operating grants? They're unrestricted funding for programming and administrative costs that your organizations have. They aren't meant to support large equipment purchases or capital campaigns. We've had, as many of you know, our capital grants going. These are not meant to be used for that. They're meant to be used on the services that your organization provides and the associated quote, quote, overhead costs that come with that. We have switched, this used to be an every year process. We are now switching it to an every other year process, which means any grants that are awarded from this process will be with 2 installments over 2 years. For eligibility, you must be a 501c3 public charity, and you must have had that status for 1 year and have been offering programming for a year. Hospitals, schools, animal welfare organizations, houses of worship, retirement communities, and grant-making foundations are ineligible to apply. If you have an umbrella organization, so you have one parent kind of company or nonprofit that has subsidiaries, only one of those subsidiaries can apply. This is to keep the process fair. You must be a direct service provider, meaning you have some type of population you directly serve. There's more detailed eligibility criteria on our website, and you can email me with any eligibility criteria or questions you might have. So this grant opportunity has 2 steps. First is a letter of intent, which is a bit of a misnomer, but it's the name our grant system uses for this kind of preliminary application. Might be a better way of saying it. It's general questions that are typically the decision point that our grant committees use later on in the process when they reach a decision of whether to award or not. So it's a series of questions. This is meant to balance the time and effort. This application process can be lengthy, and so we want to be able to tell you up front whether you really are a fit or not for this process and for PCF. As I've said, it's split into 2 tracks, and I'll go into those in just a moment. And the deadline is August 17th at 11:59 p.m. We don't accept late submissions, so please start early on this. So again, that deadline for the letter of intent is August 17th. We do an internal hustle to get those reviews and have decisions made. On September 1st, all applicants will be notified of whether or not they are moving forward in the process. Those that do will create a full proposal. It will have questions from your letter of intent already filled in, as well as additional questions about your organization and documents for you to upload, such as your 990 and your budget. The deadline for that application is October 13th. We've extended to this year based on some feedback from past applicants. From October to December, we have grant committees review it. And in December, our board approves those recommendations from the grant committee. And then in January, those full applications are the applicants receive notification as to whether they were awarded or not. Based on past cycles we've seen, we expect to get about 160 letters of intent. Between 80 and 90 of those will move forward to submit a full proposal, and we expect 50 to 55 awarded grants. So the way this multi-year process will work is that It'll be paid fully upon award in January 2024. In 2025, there will be a report due, just saying how things have gone. And after that report is complete, you'll receive that second installment. We tier our grant amounts based on how much you spend in Pinellas County. So if you spend under $500,000 in Pinellas County each year, you can request up to $15,000. The 2-year grant will be $15,000 in year 1 and $15,000 in year 2. And so on for the budgets between 500,000 and 2.5 million, request up to 20,000. That would be 20,000 year 1, 20,000 year 2. And then if you have expenditures above 2.5 million in Pinellas, you can request up to 25,000. So there's sometimes some confusion about the way our application is structured because we focus very much on programming, despite this being general operating. We don't really look at what you're going to be spending it on. We do ask later on in the process if you move forward, but it's not really the focus of the grant. The focus is on what you do and your impact, and kind of allows us to compare different organizations offering different types of programming. So we focus on your programming, even though the grant itself can be spent on a variety of expenses, even if they aren't what's typically considered a program cost, such as rent or high-level leadership salaries. One thing that has changed this year significantly is the elimination of character limits. There are now character recommendations. I will strongly emphasize this later when I go on. Look at the recommended character count. Do not write a thesis, is what I'll say. Don't write a thesis. However, there's been a lot of feedback we've gotten about how the character limits really suck up a lot of time in trying to narrow down content. And so hopefully this alleviates that a bit. So I've talked about these 2 tracks of human and direct community services and arts and culture. So human and direct community services is kind of anything to benefit a population in the Pinellas County community. It's anything from behavioral health to food insecurity, voter engagement, housing, really anything that's not art and culture goes in this bucket. We don't fund advocacy efforts. So programming that tries to influence public policy or legislation would not be part of this funding. Pardon me. That advocacy efforts wouldn't be part of this funding. However, nonpartisan voter registration, for example, those kind of efforts would qualify. I'll go question by question again later on, but we ask about what do you do? Who do you reach? What is the change you want to see in the people you reach? And how will you know that change has happened? Then arts and culture. So this is for organizations with a mission related to arts and culture. So kind of to give the difference, if you're a behavioral health program, but art therapy is a component, that's still human and direct community services. But if you're providing, my voice today. Sorry about that. If you're providing art classes to youth, that's arts and culture. Stronger requests will focus on service to Pinellas County residents, not tourism-based programming. So for example, maybe you're trying to bring an exhibition to your space or something. You would focus on the benefit that has to Pinellas County residents, not out-of-county visitors. And again, we kind of focus on what do you do? Who do you want to reach? How are those people you want to reach going to benefit from whatever you're proposing or whatever programming you run? And is it easily accessible to those people? So now I'm going to hop into the grant portal. I'm going to assume you know how to log on and access the letter of intent. If you don't, please reach out to me. That's just to save a little time now. So just one second. So when you get to the letter of intent, you will see these opening qualifying questions of really just making sure that you've read over the eligibility criteria and that you're a fit. So have you had C3 status for a year? Have you been offering direct programming for a year? Do you fall into one of these excluding categories? Are you registered with Check a Charity? I get questions about this sometimes. If most charitable organizations in Florida must register with the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services to fundraise in the state of Florida, we want to know that you are. If you are not, get started on that. Check yourself and Check a Charity. this is what it looks like. You type in your organization's name and you'll show up. So if I type in Pinellas Community Foundation, you see us down here. So you should see yourself in this database. If you don't, get started on registering now, because if you do move forward in the process and have to submit a full proposal, we'll want to see that you're registered. And then you select what type of organization you are, arts and culture or community services. I'm going to start with the organization background and then dive into the two types of LOIs here. So we ask project name. I'm going to change this after this webinar to organization name. That's what it should be, since we're not funding a project here. Your mission statement, this should be really what goes on your 990. This is not mission, vision, values, just mission, just the short mission statement that your organization operates on. Are you headquartered in Pinellas County, your total operating budget size, and the percent that is spent in Pinellas. And that helps us determine, again, this operating budget size supporting Pinellas County, how much you're requesting based on that, and what how your leadership identifies. So now I'll go into arts and culture. Here's my character count warning again. We have set it high. It says 10,000 characters are allowed for almost every question. We also give a recommended character count. I really, really encourage you not to exceed the recommended character count by much. It won't help you unless there is significant substance behind it. So make sure that anything above that character count counts. Sorry for the horrible pun. So for disciplines, you would select what you are, music, interdisciplinary, designer, architecture, theater. If you select other for arts and culture, a field will show up at the very bottom asking what that discipline is. You can self-describe it. This is just to make sure we're moving forward a variety of disciplines in the process. Artistic and cultural programming. So this is what you describe what your organization does in terms of arts and culture within that discipline that you've selected above. We want to know about what you do and if there's any accomplishments related to that programming that you're proud of recently. And then we get into that, who do you serve? So we call this your audience. Typically, we think of a performance with audience. However, this is any kind of population you're reaching. So what is the community you're reaching? So we want to know who and why it's important. Why is this group of people important? Is it youth? Is it under-resourced parts of the community? Why do you want to reach them? Then community impact. So how does that community and audience you've defined in the previous question benefit from it? Make sure the audience is clearly defined, because the scoring for community impact is dependent on a clearly defined audience and a clearly defined benefit. If the audience is not clearly defined, the benefit is diluted, and we can't strongly score the impact on it because we don't know who you're serving. So these two questions are very closely linked. Community engagement. So you've talked about these people you're reaching, how they benefit. Now, how do you reach them literally? How are you marketing? How are you going door to door in certain cases? Are you reaching out through the school system? How do you reach them to get them engaged with your organization and the program it offers? And then this is a new question this year, feedback loops. So these people have been engaged with your programming. Now, how do you get feedback from them? How might you use, or how do you use feedback they offer to improve your programming and make sure that it stays strong and in touch with the community you're serving? Final required question is cost to participate. Is there a cost to participate in your programming? Are there sliding scales? If you're a museum, are you offering subsidized admissions? Would this grant go towards subsidizing admissions? PCF is going to prioritize highly accessible programming in the monetary sense. And if there is a fee, you can talk about why that's important. Maybe it really is necessary to sustain your programming. We also know that's important. So explain the cost to participate here and any justification behind it. And again, you'll see these recommended character counts. I do want to point that out. Recommended. And then anything else to share. This does have a hard limit of 2,000 characters to keep things fair, because it kind of breaks out of the format of us asking you to answer a question in particular. Is there any other relevant information you want us to know about your organization? Anything you've described? Any circumstances that might help PCF better understand what you're doing in the community and your organization as a whole. So that's arts and culture. I'm now going to switch over to human and direct community services. Okay, again, the warning about the character counts, I won't repeat myself. Program description. So similar to arts and culture, what do you do? There's an example of peer counseling services that offers after-school support groups for middle schoolers and high schoolers. If I were running that organization, I would describe what I do, how it works, and who is served. Again, how do you reach that community you are trying to serve? How do you ensure that they're aware of your services and actually uses them? And then similar to arts and culture, how do those people then influence the design of the program? So how do you use feedback to improve the impact of your work? And you can give an example of a time that was successful and a change that was made to the programming or part of the programming that was strengthened based on that feedback received. A good thing to put here would also be maybe you have an advisory council. If you're sometimes much, well, really depends on this, doesn't depend on the size of the organization, just how it's structured. Maybe an advisory council is an example of a feedback loop. Outcomes. This is the crux of your request. This is not the outcome of this grant. This is an outcome your organization measures. PCF assumes you are monitoring your program performance in some way to know that you are being successful. You would discuss that here. So for this peer counseling example, you would describe maybe 80% of youth involved in peer counseling will show increased emotional intelligence after 6 months of participation. We're not asking here how you're going to determine that. That's the next question. This is just what is that outcome that you're looking to achieve? It could be as short as a sentence. Very strong outcomes can be a sentence long. However, we've made the recommended character count a little higher in case you need to contextualize that outcome. Sometimes for certain very vulnerable populations, I'm thinking in the behavioral health sector, sometimes low outcomes, you get 30% success rate in depending on someone's, perhaps diagnosis, and you're ringing the bells because that's fantastic. You can contextualize that here. You can say our outcomes are common for this sector of nonprofit programming. This is the kind of the industry standard, so to speak. You can offer that context here to help reviewers kind of situate themselves within your programming. And then the next question is measurement and evaluation. So for peer counseling services, the peer counseling example, there's an emotional intelligence test that's administered at the beginning of peer counseling and every 6 months thereafter. So that 80% example, this example organization is hoping to see that 80% of youth improve on this emotional intelligence test. And again, you can contextualize the measurement tool. Maybe it's custom made, but I know some organizations work with an academic institution to make sure it is valid. You can discuss that here. And then similar to arts and culture, there's an anything else to share space where anything to help us better understand your organization, the programming, anything that didn't fit in the other questions that you think is important to mention can be put here. And that is the two sections. I will go back now with one last slide in case there is an oh crud moment with the grant portal. Take a screen. So if you have any trouble submitting, we've not had many problems with the grant portal. However, I really want to save everyone's behinds. Screenshot an error message you get or describe the error message detailed to me, email me, and don't log into the grant portal again. I need to see that you did not log into the grant portal after the deadline to consider any kind of, there was a bug, please let my submission through request. So screenshot, email me, and then leave it alone is my advice. So now I'm happy to take any questions. If you could use the raise hand feature rather than just unmuting automatically so we can go orderly if there is any questions. Oh, and there is one in the chat. So someone asked, can you share if the amount spent in Pinellas would be for the whole organization or for the program being offered? It's for the whole organization. So your whole organization's expenditure in Pinellas annually based on your fiscal year. Melody, go ahead if you had a follow-up.
Yeah, so the program we are thinking of is housed out of Pinellas. And but it may be reaching individuals other than just in Pinellas. And for us to segment who we know who's reaching in Pinellas, we can try to put those parameters in there with our counselors that are in that particular program serving that area. But as it's harder because we have so many different things going on, we just want to make sure we're giving you the numbers that you want.
I would count, even if the clients aren't from Pinellas, if it's taking place in Pinellas, just count everything as Pinellas.
Yeah, that's our headquarters. That's where we operate out of, and everything is run out of there. So
yeah,
perfect. Okay,
great.
But again, for that program, but we have other programs within our organization that are not run straight out of Pinellas. So when you ask for an organizational, the percentage it's real hard for our finance people because they're paying for the whole everything. So to segment what is, we can do a best guess scenario. If that
I
helps.
would do that just because I'm assuming it will be based on what I know of your organization in the large tier anyways.
Yes.
Once you cross that, if you hit the 2.5 million mark, you can kind of stop counting, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I'm just assuming you'll hit that based on past applications.
Yes.
So if you hit that, then don't worry about it. Make your best estimate.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Great, you're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Mickey.
David, just a quick question on the range of the, amounts that each based on your agency budget. Does the Pinellas Community Foundation also will be going, well, we're looking to only do 20 in this budget range, agency size. You know what I'm saying? For each one of those agency sizes, is Community Foundation making a number of awards at each? So like, if you're the highest, we're only looking to fund 4 organizations in that highest budget range. I'm looking, has that been said at all?
There's not a hard number, at least at the LOI phase. We can certainly disclose estimates once we get to the full proposal stage.
Okay, thanks.
But for the letter of intent, it's just based on strength. Dave.
We noticed that the questions on the outcomes and the measurements and evaluation, they both had their character limits reduced from 2,000 characters to 1. I heard what you said earlier, so I'm tracking what you're saying, but we just wanted to be sure that the new lower character limits are correct before we begin the editing process. Did you rejigger those down in order to make room for the feedback loops? Is that what happened, or?
No, we put them down because we noticed that most of the extra text given was not useful.
Okay.
That we noticed a lot of people, to fill the character limit, put a lot of unnecessary information for outcomes that then hurt their answers. So we put that down. If you've been successful in the past, you can continue to use that content.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for the guidance.
Yes. You're welcome. Melody, did you still have a question? You can unmute. Your hand's still raised.
Oh, sorry, forgot to take it down.
Oh, no problem. Okay, I'll go to the chat now. Would you like to know what other organizations will be supporting our program? Would this go into the last section? You can talk about other funders. It's not going to be influential at this point. On the full proposal, we do ask about other funders supporting your program. At this point, I wouldn't spend time on it. Grant Hub Site Key. I'm not sure what you're talking about. I can call you offline, Julia, about the site key. Great. And then would you like to have any attachments? We don't allow attachments on the letter of intent. If you're moved forward to the full proposal, there will be a place for you to upload a certain number of pages for supporting material, such as brochures and annual report. At this phase, for reviewers' time's sake, given that this is quite the sprint, we don't allow uploads.
David.
Yes, Walter.
Basically, my program is dealing with youth, but since January, I've been working with Pinellas County Neighborly Seniors Cafe. So should I include this work that I do with the seniors throughout Pinellas County, or just basically stick with the youth program?
Are you tracking different outcomes in both? Like, are you looking for the same kind of improvement or like, confidence, performance?
Yes, for sure.
If it's the same, then you can talk about both.
Okay. Okay,
Great. Nan, you can unmute.
Okay, thank you. So David, my nonprofit is the Suicide Prevention and Drug Overdose, but when I fill out for the grant portal for one of my programs, which is the Paws Up for Mental Health, reaching the younger children from 6 months to age 12, I could actually probably go under the arts under there because that's musical. So what do you recommend that I go under, the arts because it's musical one I'm educating with the mental health, or just stick with the mental health portal?
The mental health, the human direct community services one, because your mission is related to direct and human services.
Okay.
Even though you're using arts as a component, your mission
Yeah.
isn't around the arts.
Okay, yep, they're very good. Thank you. And I do need to
Great.
ask you about the logo for the van yet too.
Yes, I have to get in touch with the county and then I'll get back to you.
Okay, all right, thank
Great.
you. Bye.
If for the organization budget question, do you want in-kind support if the in-kind support is in the form of free legal services? I will have to follow up on that one because I know legal services, given their cost is higher, it can bloat the number a bit. I'll have to get back to you in email. And I will email any legal aid provider that is applying. So sorry, I don't have an answer off the top of my head. And I think those are the questions I see. I'm going to give 30 more. Oh, 11:29. We're right on time. I'll give 30 more seconds to give anyone time to type or raise their hands. And I will be sending out a recording of this to everyone who registered and to anyone who has an open letter of intent in the portal. Okay. Great. Okay, I'll take the thank you as a signal to sign off. Thank you everyone for attending this. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions. I'll send out a recording in the next day or two, just have to get it on YouTube and a link posted. And I look forward to seeing everyone's submission. It's good to see so many familiar faces on a lighter program than ARPA. So I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day and a good week ahead.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.